Do you ever find when you receive an email or any kind of communication from an organization in conservation, you almost wonder like, do they really know me? Do they know what I want? Are they asking the right thing? Because when I get emails, a lot of times I get emails, I sign up for all of them. I sometimes realize I'm like, I don't want to donate to you for this cause, or I just don't want to. You're always asking for donations. You're always asking for something. And I just don't think I'm going to get the best bang for my buck if I donate to you. I would like to see something else. And I'm going to talk about that on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. This is the podcast where you can find out what's going on with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean. And today, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. Not really a rant, but more of a suggestion, I guess. I've been doing a course in communications. For the last 10 years, I wanted to change the route of, or sort of the course of my career and go more into communications, right? So I started it's really started off 12 years ago. I started a blog, I started the podcast, and I started a YouTube channel. When I started the podcast, that's when I really said, hey, you know what? I really like this communications thing. I really fallen in love with it. I'm really good at operationalizing it. I want to work for organizations to do communication. So for the past 9-10 years, I've been watching what people are doing at organizations in terms of their communications. And I've noticed something that they do. It's a lot of the same. You know, you get an email about a problem and the organization says, here's the solution. And then to get to that solution, we need your help. And that is mostly to donate. And that bothers me a lot because I know if I donate, I'm not necessarily going to get a report or like a specific area on how that's doing, what their strategy, their full strategy is. I just don't trust it. And it's not to say that I'm against any of these organizations. I do know and think that they do a great job at, lobbying the government or working with policymakers. I just sometimes when I read them, I'm just like, I can't afford to donate a ton of money, right? So if I donate something, it's going to be like $20 here, maybe $40, maybe $100 if I'm lucky, if I have that to spare, but I want to know more about this project. I want to know how you're doing. I want to see a video or a podcast on the update of that campaign and how well it's going. Because I want to see results. I've paid money to see results, right? To hopefully that you will get results. And I know conservation is not linear. If I donate more money, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to find that solution or achieve that goal that you said that you're putting out to achieve. A lot of times they do, sometimes they don't. But I would love to see these organizations change their communication style. Really move towards the audience that they're moving towards. Right? That's what I would like to see. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about what I would like to see and how I would do things if I were in communications at one of these organizations. To change the game a little bit, to spin, the sort of communications world on the top of its head and sort of or flip it on top of its head and spin it around a little bit. And I'm learning a lot because I'll be honest, I've been taking this communications course from our sponsor for today, which is Conservation Careers. Conservation Careers, I've known the founder and the CEO, Dr. Nick Askew, for quite some time. He's in England and he has this great organization and website that allows you to take training. And I've been taking training on communications because I needed to get that experience and knowledge of communication strategies. And so this course that I'm taking, Conservation Communications course, is just great. It kind of gives you everything in like this online video course, but it gives you all of the tactics and strategies and knowledge that you need to know to get jobs. And there are people who have gotten jobs out of that. And it's just absolutely amazing. And in the course, I'm looking at sort of the projects or the training. It talks about how to produce a communications plan, examples of said communication plan, how to write engaging copy about conservation projects, how to get press and media coverage for those conservation projects, examples of how to get press coverage for those conservation projects. So it's just built step by step. I'm going to go on how to build engage audiences on social media for conservation projects, how to create content support to support conservation projects, how to measure the success of your communication activities, and of course, bonus, which is the top tips on put it all into practice. Now, there is probably about, well, we're going to say about 6 or 7 hours of content here in 10 lessons that will help you do everything that you need to learn about conservation communications. I just think this is a really important course. And if you want to get access and you want to, follow a career in conservation and in communications, you can do that by going to the website, which is conservation-careers.com, and put in when you pick one of the courses. So there's the Kickstarter, which kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to find a job and build that career. There's a conservation project management and design course, and there's the communication for conservation projects course. You can get 33% off any training course at Conservation Careers just by putting in SUFB. Speak Up for Blue. SUFB. Put in that code, you get a 33% discount, and you get one up on everybody else who's not taking these courses, not part of this program, and you are going to get a step up on your career in conservation careers. So go to conservation-careers.com. Look up the training courses. I'm going to put all the links in the show notes so you can get access, and put in the code SUFB for 33% off. All right, now let me go on with my rant. I don't know if this has been done before. These types of strategies I'm about to tell you. I don't know if this is something that is doable or is really effective. This is something that I would do and I would test out if I were a communications manager at an organization. I would really start to allow people to get to know the organization and get to know the people at the organization. Because what I've learned through my communications journey and through this podcast and interviewing a number of people is that the people who work at these organizations are amazing. They're all fun. They're all passionate. They care about the environment. And when you listen to them, just like you have fallen in love with the people on this podcast that I've had as guests as podcasts, or you wanted to know because they have an interesting story. I'm not going to say you're going to fall in love with every single one of them, but you like having them on, like hearing from them, because they're interesting people. They have an interesting job, and they love their job, and they want to protect the ocean, or they want to protect the planet in some kind of way. And that's an important aspect. We really want to reward that. And so what I would do is I would have people, I would launch a podcast, would be one of the first things, or a YouTube channel, which one of the first things I would do, so that people can get to know not only the people, but the people working on their projects, right? Working on the programs that are at the organization, so that people can get to know them. And then when I send out the email, it's like, do you know so-and-so? Do you know this person? Do you know that person? And what they're working on? Hear it right from them. Hear it and really start to get the communication piece out there, so that people can understand the problems, the level of the problems, and how the solutions will actually help all of this, right? All of the programs, all of the projects, and it would help the planet and the ocean. And so that's what I would do first off. I would really put together a plan to showcase the people and the projects that are out there, so that you get to know who they are, right? I think that really solidifies, the message that is coming out of those organizations, right? Then I would start to put a bunch of call to actions together, not just in saying, hey, donate to us, but I would really start to look at it from a social media marketing perspective, right? A social marketing perspective. Let's look at what we do as an organization, how we are as an organization, and say, if you love us, you're going to donate. We'll put a donate button on every piece that we have, but if you really want to support us, you can do that. If you love what we do, you can support us. And I feel like it will generate, more organic donations from individuals than it has just by sending out an email saying, here's the problem, this is what we need to do, you need to donate money to do it. It's like, here's the problem and here's the person working on it, and she or he or whoever is going to tell us all about the project and why it's so important for them to work on this project and why they chose to work at this place to work on this project. And when you start to hear from them and you start to hear why they care so much, and also the stakeholders that are involved and they get to talk about it and why it needs to be protected, you start to really get a feel and a loyalty as an audience member for those, for those people, right? For that cause, for that solution, and you want to help. So then maybe all of a sudden you decide, hey, I'm going to donate toward this. I'm going to support this. Or maybe you come up with a call to action. Hey, we need the government, for whatever level of government, to sign off on this project. We need their support. The only way that they're going to get support is if you talk to them. You email a senator. You email a member of parliament if you're in Canada. You email a city councilor, right? And you contact them, and here are the points that you can contact them with, and put them in your own words. We would love for you to just bombard them, or tell a story of why this bay is important to you, or why this sea is important to you. Because all of a sudden, when you start sharing those stories with that counselor, whether you live in that area or not, you could live halfway across the world, but maybe you had an experience there. That's all of a sudden, that's what matters. That emotional connection from people to place really starts to tug at the emotional strings of the person making those decisions. And when you do that, you start to say, okay, here we go. This is what we need to do. Also celebrate the wins. This is what we've been able to do. This is something that we've been able to do, or even some of the shortfalls. It's like, we were so close in getting this done, but we need more help, and building that community, be like, can you help us? What are your suggestions? This is what we think needs to be done. What do you think we should do to be able to get that? And building on that and building on that and building on that will really start to build that community, of supporters. Not only from a monetary value or donation value, but also from, an engagement value, right? Getting feedback from people, asking what they would do, asking their ideas, getting, talking about like, hey, if we need to email something, would you be in? Tell me your stories. Really involve that community that is following, that's supporting you, and then you get the support that you need. Right? Whether it be in form of donations, whether it be in form of, names on a call to action or a petition, or contacting specific members of parliament or government, that's what we need in a communications plan. That's what we need as organizations, to really fall in love with the organization. And here's an example. There is a company that I've mentioned on this podcast before. It's called Barstool Sports. Now, a lot of people don't like Barstool Sports because they're controversial. They say a lot of in the past, they've said a lot of misogynistic things. Sometimes they still do. They're not perfect people, but they're a company that has been built around the internet. They grew up as a newspaper. It was all about betting, and then it grew into a blog. It was more about lifestyle and stuff that's going on in the world from a very shallow point of view. Sports, entertainment, all that kind of stuff. And they were talking about their opinions. Then the podcasting started. Then YouTube started for them. And they just grew into this massive company of entertainment. So much so that it got bought over by a betting company because they were so into sports and into betting. It fell through. That was their marketing. That was the betting company's marketing plan. They paid $450 million for that company. They didn't need to. They just did because there's a ridiculous amount of money in the betting industry. Then they said, you know what? You guys are too controversial for us. We're going to go over to ESPN, but we're going to allow you to buy this company for $1. So the founder, Dave Portnoy, bought it for $1. But during that time, this is all in a span of 20 years. During that time, they slowly accumulated this loyal fan base, and they have people who are in their content division, right? They have people who are always in front of the camera, or always behind a microphone, saying their opinions, and they're interesting people. They sometimes they get really, some of them get really angry. They like to play pranks on each other, like to play jokes on each other. Now they have reality shows like a Barstool, surviving Barstool, and all this kind of stuff, and it's hugely entertaining. But the reason why it's so entertaining is because people have bought in to the content creators, the people, the characters of this company. They show the behind the scenes of this company. They are completely transparent for most of the part of their company because they just show. It's like The Office. They have the Barstool scenes every week, and they just go through all the different storylines at work. They they yell at each other and all this kind of stuff. They play games, they compete, all this kind of stuff. But people have fallen in love with the characters. They have their favorites, they have the ones they don't like, and so the reality show Surviving Barstool makes sense, right? And you just start following all these, and then the podcast, and then this and that, and then they all interact, and they have arguments, and they have to follow sort of like corporation rules a lot of the times, and all this stuff about freedom of speech and things. Whatever the content is, it doesn't matter. It's the fact of what they're doing. You may agree or disagree with the content, and you may not like Barstool, and that's fine. But what they've done, and what I've observed over my years of watching this, is people fall in love with the content creators. People fall in love with the people that are part of the organization, that represent the organization. Now, when they do something bad, people will call them out for it. When they do something good, people will reward them. And they just have this loyalty. They have these stoolies, the Barstool fans, and they will go to bat for Barstool at every turn, every time they turn the corner. They're always there. And that's what communications that's what nonprofit organizations, conservation organizations need from their communications people. They need to have the audience be loyal to them, be loyal to their organization, because they know the people. They bought into the people. They are supporting, and they want those people to succeed. They want to follow what they do. They want to understand the role of each person and how they are doing in their projects. Now, they don't have to do behind the scenes or games or this and that. That doesn't have to follow that way. It could be in a very professional manner. But what I would love to see is that loyalty be shown for an organization, right? Open up the behind the scenes if you have to. Really get to talk to people about their project, the great times, the frustrating times. God knows if you're in conservation, you know how frustrating it can be. The wins, the losses, and what the plan is. That's what's great. I just did an interview on, last week with Anthony Morante, who's from Oceania, Canada. He was in the courtroom when the ruling came down that in Canada, they were going to say that not all plastic is toxic, which puts the single-use plastic ban in jeopardy for 6 different items of plastic. That was probably devastating for him, but we got to hear how he felt about it and what he thinks the next steps should be, and how he hopes that appeal process will work to kind of turn that around, because there could be some pretty big ramifications to saying not all plastics is toxic, so that means you can't put plastic under the toxic list in the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. But we got to hear from him directly. And to be honest, as I'm doing the interview, I'm rooting for the guy. He's a nice guy, right? He's very passionate about his work. He decided to go from laboratory work to going into, conservation because he wanted to do something. He wanted to have an impact on the planet. And the job he was doing before just didn't cut it. And working for Oceania or WWF before this, he was able to say, hey, I'm actually working on something to protect something. Now he's a campaign manager for plastic at Oceania, Canada, right? Very successful. Being able to work on these types of critical pieces of legislation, informing the government, working with the government to support these bills, right? And then when it comes in, trying to do everything they can to keep those bans and everything in place, right? You can tell, you can hear the passion from his voice, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. So being able to, build that relationship with these content creators, scientists, conservationists, activists, really helps bring home the message that we can do this conservation, and really puts the hope and the loyalty towards those people and those organizations that they work for. And I just love it. And I think it's a great idea. Of course, I came up with it. So of course it's a great idea, but I'm sure other people have too. They've done it in other sectors, and you want to root for the people and you want to see their success. That's what the beauty of social media and content creation is. And a lot of organizations don't get into that. And that frustrates me. It really does. But, that's the way it is. And that's why I'm trying to get into conservation communications and be able to say, hey, we can do this and we can really turn heads and we can really have an effect, not only for the organization, but for the people working for the organization and the projects that they work on. So that's my thought. Kind of a rant, kind of a suggestion. I would love to hear your thoughts. And to be honest, I got these thoughts from that Communications for Conservation Projects course at Conservation Careers. So go to conservation-careers.com and sign up for one of those courses if you're interested. If you want it for Christmas, have someone get it for you. They get 33% off by putting in the code SUFB. It also helps support this show. And to be honest, it allows you to change the path of your career if you're not happy with it, or if you want to go into something else, or you want to build more skills for your current career that you're working at your organization. Go to conservation-careers.com, put in the code SUFB for one of those projects, one of those courses, any of those courses, all of those courses, and you'll get 33% off just because you listen to this show. So please go do that. If you do, let me know. I'd love to hear your experience about that, how that all went. And if you're in the course, you're in the community, because that's what you do. You get into the Conservation Community Pro community, and you get onto an app. Hit me up. I'd love to hear from you in the app. All right? But that's it for today's episode. Let me know what you think at How to Protect the Ocean. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.